recently returned to Auckland after 4 years in Hong Kong, and I was heading up the New Zealand Train Enterprise team there. It was certainly a great privilege to work in such a dynamic market alongside New Zealand companies and their partners to support their efforts there. I think Cameron touched on the fact that Hong Kong is perhaps not appreciated as a good market in its own right, and there's certainly some very good success stories in New Zealand that are doing business in Hong Kong. It's a good fit scale for New Zealand companies, particularly those that are new to Asia. I thought I'd just touch on, firstly, just on NZTE Key Facts, perhaps for those of you not familiar with what we do. So we have 2,000 customers. Now that's New Zealand businesses. I'm a customer manager, so I'm working with a portfolio of companies to help their international efforts. We're a Crown entity. We have two ministers, Minister Grosser and Minister Carter, who we both report into. 550 people across the organisation, about half of those offshore. We have about 38 posts around the world. And our purpose is to grow New Zealand companies internationally. We're working with, as I mentioned, about 2,000 customers, but we're working intensively with about 500, what we call our Focus 500 companies, and these tend to be around the sweet spot, around 5 to 25 million. That's where we feel that we can add the most value, and certainly if you look at where the contribution in terms of exports, we're working sort of in that top half where there's a small number of companies that are contributing quite a lot in terms of the export earnings. We do have a number of other programs and services for those companies that are perhaps under that 5 million threshold. Now, just to talk about NZTE in Hong Kong, it is the regional hub for NZTE in North Asia. So we have offices in Guangzhou, Beijing, Shanghai, Qingdao, Shenzhen, also Taipei, and offices in Tokyo and Seoul as well. The Hong Kong team is headed up by a trade commissioner, and then we have business development managers that are responsible for food and beverage, health and ICT, and they'll be working with a portfolio of New Zealand companies at any one time to help their efforts into the market and to be identifying opportunities and partners for them to work with. We also have people in the office that cover investment for Greater China, communications and admin. Just in terms of our sector focus, and this is largely based on where we're getting most of the interest or the capability from the New Zealand companies. So certainly food and beverage and health, and that covers supplements and skincare, are very strong sectors of focus for us. About 2/3 of the companies that we're actively engaged with are in that area. The other collaborative activity is in ICT, and telcos, software, and as Cameron has noted, that it's a large service economy, so there's lots of opportunity for New Zealand to be bringing their solutions to help those companies. We've also been doing some work around hotel fit-out goods, so working with, there's a large number of the hotels that have their procurement people based in Hong Kong for Greater China, and in some cases global as well. So we're building those relationships to bring in the types of Methven with their tapware. There's Petronic that does like fire alarms, Gallagher Security with their security systems. And that's just some of the companies that are active in Hong Kong. There's about 20 companies that have an office in Hong Kong. Main Freight being one of those, Comvita, Air New Zealand, Separix Nutritionals, which is a really interesting little company out of Dunedin that's extracting high-value proteins from dairy. And they're using Hong Kong as a base from which they're developing their business into China and further afield in North Asia as well. Atrax, they do weighing equipment. Every piece of mail or luggage that comes into or leaves Hong Kong is weighed on a New Zealand Atrax weighing scale. So they've certainly got that market sewn up. Catalyst IT, They're an open source company from Wellington. They recently won the tender for the South China Morning Post, which is the main English-speaking paper in Hong Kong. They're going to develop their website. Gallagher Security, which does access systems. They've got the town gas site. So there's some good business being done by New Zealand companies. And some of these companies, they're all in Hong Kong for a different reason. I think in the case of Gallagher Security, they were there primarily to develop their China business, but they've found there's some very good opportunities in Hong Kong. And the other advantage they've found is the contacts in Hong Kong are building their links into China as well, and that's been a very good channel to market for them in terms of building out their business and expanding within the region. Comvita is certainly a very big success story for New Zealand and Hong Kong. It has a very high brand awareness. We did some research a few years ago through Nielsen, and unprompted, Comvita came up as one of the brands that consumers could recall, and the other brands were local or American brands. So it certainly shows that the strategy Comvita has around their own stores. They have 70 point of sale staff who are in stores promoting their product. Really important in terms of building that brand equity. I think it's also just worth also emphasising the number of mainland tourists that are coming in to Hong Kong. It's a significant market. They're coming in to shop. They're buying New Zealand honey. They're buying infant formula. They're buying colostrum, green shell mussel extracts, because they know that it's the genuine thing. They trust it as well. So Hong Kong in that sense is a great market to build that brand equity and that trust around the product. The government has been working, New Zealand Inc has been coming together around certain regions of priority to determine the strategy and what the focus is. Now India was the first, and China has been the second. The second region where we have worked with MFAT and MED and our police colleagues, education, tourism, in order to determine a strategy. And the China Inc strategy, the 2015 vision, New Zealand and China have strong, resilient economic, political and people-to-people relationships which have stimulated New Zealand's innovation, learning and economic growth. There's a number of pillars there. NZT is the lead agency on 2 and 4. One is about doubling two-way goods trade with China to 20 billion. It's currently around 13 billion, but there's an extraordinary growth in China. We think it's doable. Hong Kong is included as part of the China Inc strategy in all those goals except number 2. So that's, again, acknowledging the importance that Hong Kong has as a conduit to and from China. Now, I just wanted to draw on some research that we recently completed in March this year that looked at health supplements. As I mentioned, that's quite a strong area of focus for us. I'm talking here about honey, it's about vitamins, it's colostrum, green shell mussel extract. And we did this research in order to help New Zealand companies to understand how to position their product at a consumer level. The respondents were asked to describe New Zealand, and this was top of mind comments, and it's all the things that you would expect. But I think again we perhaps we want to see ourselves as an innovative country, you know, with some great technology products, and we certainly are developing that side of it. But to a consumer in Hong Kong and China, these are the associations that they have. And the comments are all very positive, as you can see. There's a perception, no pollution, we've got clean water, about green and organic, lots of space, that we're down to earth. I think that's one of the themes that came strongly through the research, was about the perception of quality of life and values. We're relaxed, down to earth, trustworthy, have high morals, and standards peaceful. And I think that's also something that can be leveraged for the Maori economy as well, because of the asset base, the meat, the dairy, all those sorts of products as well. The fact that there's the pure aspect of it, but also the fact that New Zealanders seem to have integrity, that we have high morals, and that's something that we can certainly leverage. Just drilling down a little bit further on that as well, some of the key reasons why these consumers would choose a New Zealand brand, and again this was for health supplements, high quality, trustworthy, credible, confidence, no fakes. Again, that comes back to the fact mainland tourists are buying New Zealand honey, infant formula, because they know that it's real, it's genuine. A reputation for quality, for food safety. Again, coming back to that clean, pure, no additives, natural. And head-to-head with other good countries like US, Switzerland, Germany, Australia, many consumers would choose the New Zealand brand and pay up to 25% more on average. So, I think that's also very key when we're thinking about pricing strategies for Hong Kong, that we need to think about the value from the consumer perspective, because I think we can sometimes underprice ourselves or undervalue just the strength and the value from the New Zealand brand. So in terms of perhaps translating this for the opportunity for Maori business and areas that need development, in terms of exporters layer is thin, productive layer rich, obviously you've got enormous production capability in all those products that the meat, the seafood, the dairy, all those products that are key products that trade with Hong Kong. And the opportunity is to get much closer to the customer, to understand their needs, and again that ties back into the research. What are consumers? What do they think about? What's their perception of New Zealand? What matters to them, and how you can position that product. Creating cultural pathways to commerce is leveraging that cultural affinity to develop business relationships, and Minister Sharples talked about some of the missions that have been going on to China as well, to build those business relationships. And I think that the Maori culture is something very unique to New Zealand. It's very well received. We've had in China, in Shanghai at food shows, we've had kapahaga groups, and all the other pavilions around us have been very unhappy, because when the kapahaga group has started up, there's been a swarm of people onto the New Zealand stand, and everyone else has been left with no visitors. So it certainly is something that really appeals in China. Maori can take a lead role in sustainability. In terms of sustainability as a consumer driver, it's not as advanced as it is in, say, the UK or the US, but here we're talking about sort of intergenerational business, taking a long view on things. Minister Sharples also talked about, building friendships with partners in China, and I found in my from when I was working in the private sector as well, that you were part of the family. You build a friendship before you do business, and that's a key thing in China. Moving up the value chain, again capturing that margin, getting closer to the end consumer. Good role models for primary sector business. There's recently there was a group that went to Japan of kiwi fruit growers with Zespri, and they met with customers over there. It was very well received. There was a wonderful connection with the partners, and that works well in China as well. So perhaps looking at Maori as growers, partnering up with Zespri as a marketer, that's a good model that perhaps could work for honey or other products. And investment required to develop assets. And certainly Hong Kong is a large contributor of FDI into New Zealand. So NZTE has been building up those relationships. There's a lot of interest in aquaculture and other areas as well. So there's the opportunity. Now, I just wanted to touch a little bit on the NZTE Maori business strategy. It's a focus on the key customers, again within that Focus 500 that I talked about. Macro level Maori economic development strategy and panel that's working across government to develop Maori business. Significant projects in China, and Minister Sharple's mission coming up in June is one example of that, of some of the work we're doing. Investment, again, looking at the opportunities and the interests specifically for the Maori economy, and access to capability services, central leadership, plus many other service points. So we have Liz Tiamo is charged with building that connection with Maori business. She's based in Auckland here, and I'd be happy to pass on her contact details if you'd like to talk to her about some of the things that she's doing. So that is my presentation. Thank you again very much for the opportunity to speak today, and I look forward to meeting more of you after